Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monday night's Fools Rush In. It is the Monday after the Saturday before, and we have many questions, and we have many panelists with which to answer those questions. Were we unfortunate, or was the performance unforgivable? I saw a post on Twitter earlier that we are 8 points from the playoffs, but also 8 points from our worst ever league finish. What is going to happen with so few games left to go? And a question for everyone watching along. We've been talking off camera about something not football related, and we want your ideas for if we were to have wrestling style intro music, which superstars, past or present, would our regular panelists suit the theme tunes for? We've got some ideas. We'll share them with you in a moment. But before all that, let's roll the titles.
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love with you.
Yes, whether you were there watching what was described as the most boring 4-4 draw in history, or stranded in the second city like I was, it was certainly an unforgettable weekend. Let's say hello to tonight's panel. And we're going to start with an array of Swindon shirts on offer tonight, starting with the returning Mr. Perfect, I think we're going to go with. Hello and welcome back, Ned.
Hello.
How are you, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too
Good.
bad. Getting there. Yeah.
You've chosen a joyous episode to return to. Yeah. You scored 4 goals.
Yeah, also conceded 4. Yeah, I'm not sure if my opinions on things this evening is going to be, the same as everyone watching, but let's just share them anyway.
We're not here to share opinion. Well, we're here to share opinions. We're not necessarily here to agree with anyone's opinion, though. So if you've got an opinion on something, mate, you share that opinion.
Thank you.
Next, a man who is big by nickname, big by theme tune, would definitely come out to the big show's music. Hello and good evening, BTB. How are you, Ben?
Hello, Fifey. I'm all well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, mate. Very well. And it has to be said early doors, massive appreciation from me for yours and Sarah's efforts to come and rescue me from Birmingham on Saturday night.
That's all right. Well, Sarah made the effort. I played the PlayStation, so it was her. Really.
It's a team. Life is a team game, Ben.
Well, I was awake when you came home.
You were awake when I came back.
I made sure I was still awake when you came back, and stayed up for a cup of tea and showed you where on the sofa where you're
where I could sleep. Thank you.
Where the sofa where you were sleeping. So I did my bit, and yeah, it was great. I was a bit unhappy I didn't get McDonald's brought home with me, though. I did ask for one, but it didn't happen. You did, but I didn't know where your nearest McDonald's was, and it certainly would have been cold if I bought you one from New Street Station. Well, Stratford's only 20 minutes away.
Anyway, there are more football shirts on offer, and I've been thinking long and hard about what theme tune this young man would come out to, because he has no idea really what we were talking about. And Randy Orton's "I Hear Voices in My Head," I think suits young Jack perfectly. How are you, Jack?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It was a bad weekend for you, football-wise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that you threw away a lead to draw at your team. You had Swindon doing the same. We won't talk about what happened to you in training because, this is live on the internet. We don't need everyone knowing. And also, the other side that you've got an affiliation with also lost. So football is just a bit shit, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah. No.
Next, we couldn't decide whether it would be the Heartbreak Kid or Val Venus, but we know him as Nick. Good evening, pal.
Yeah, hiya, Fifey. All this foreign stuff you're talking about is a bit too much for me.
Yes, we've discussed this before, and us sort of 30 to 40-year-old guys reliving 90s to early 2000s wrestling, it means nothing to you, does it, mate?
No, I'm going back to Les Kellett, Mick McManus, and for all you older ones, Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy. That's the ones I know of, and I don't know if they had theme tunes either.
Give us a 3-word review of your weekend.
Trip to Aylesbury.
Trip to Aylesbury, lovely. Nice review. Let's where should we go next? Let's go with the man who, without question, unanimously agreed would come out to Shane O'Max. Here comes the money. Rich by name, rich by nature. How are you, pal?
Woo! Yeah, no, all good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very, very well, thank you. It leading up really well for the weekend for you because you'd had a bit of a win at Cheltenham and then it all just turned a bit shit, didn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad I didn't spend my winnings going up there. Yeah, I know it wasn't great. You know, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but and it wasn't so great for my my team that I coach on Sunday either. So you know,
not go well either.
Probably definitely probably more forgettable weekend, that's for sure.
Well, just before we introduce our last panelist, Claire's been in touch on Twitter. Evening all. Welcome back, Ned. Missed your funny bones. Good to see you back, bud. And good timing with the Shade International news. Well, it's as if he's planned it, isn't it? But last, certainly not least, did we actually agree what music this man was going to come out to? I don't think we did because there were so many options ranging from The Undertaker to Badass Billy Gunn. But we know him as Woody the Coach. How are you, pal?
All right, mate. Yeah, I think it depends what mood I'm in.
Certainly does.
I'm not the women's period cycle of music would play depending on which music I'm in.
Woody,
Woody,
I wonder where it's going in for a minute.
Woody, do you wake up saying, on this day, I think clearly that I'm going to be this, that, or the other?
Basically, that, and I've seen Alter Bridge live, so I feel like I have warrant
Have
to. So I feel like I have warrant to have that as my my music.
Let's get straight into, well, dissecting what happened at the weekend. Were we unfortunate or was it unforgivable? Swindon led 2-0, then fell behind to bottom of the league before leading again to end up drawing and nearly throwing that point away as well and almost losing at the death to Rochdale. I don't even know where to start with this. Woody, as 4-4s go, I said in the intro, it's been described by many as the most boring 4-4 in history.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting statement in itself. But the, yeah, I mean, what a fucking shit show, to be fair. Like, don't get me wrong. I almost feel like I'm contradicting myself. What I think I said about 3 weeks ago. I said I'd rather us go out and win games 5-4. Didn't think they'd fucking take it literally, and then just not bother scoring the fifth. It's just fucking poor, isn't it? Like, and that's no disrespect to Rochdale. I admire them as a club, but it's, you know, at the end of the day, we were playing a team bottom of the table. Now I know technically a relegation threatened team normally are quite hard to play against, but that's because they could scrap a 1-0 win or something, not still bang 4 goals in against a supposed playoff potential. You know, it just wasn't good. And the fact we lost the lead twice as well, the fact we lost the lead in the first place was shocking enough. I didn't listen to the whole game in the end. I went down to watch Bassett. I had it up and I was like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, you know, it's I think, was it 2-0? And then I went, what do you mean Rochdale are 2-0 and all this kind of shit. And then, like, you know, we talk about Charlie Austin scoring 4. That just papers over the cracks for me. You know, to concede 4 at any level is poor. But to concede 4 when you've had a lead and you're supposed to be up on the it's yeah. I mean, as AC's technically said there, let's put some realism on this. Technically, Rochdale are the worst team in the Football League. You know, by stat, by whichever way Sandro wants to fucking look at it, there's your stat, Sandro. We have just drawn 4-4 to the team bottom of the football pyramid, professional football pyramid. So I'm sorry, people. I hope some of the lads might have some more positives to say, but I was fucking fuming. I thought that's a terrible. I didn't even care whether we dominated. It looks like we had 18 shots versus their 16 or whatever. I really don't give a shit. You know, that's fucking poor. It's just fucking poor. That runs up my Saturday.
Rich, you described it in our WhatsApp chat as basically a 0-0, but with lots of goals.
I was just saying what I thought Ben was going to say, to be quite honest with you. It just sounded like a Ben thing to say. So
that's a 3 draws equals a win comment, if ever I've heard one.
Literally, exactly. It was literally like a free-for-all. You know, it was as if there was literally absolute.
Nice, Ned.
It was as if no team had a defense and no team had a goalkeeper, really. You know, I think it's important to say that obviously with Austin, you know, I think he's been under a lot of criticism and stuff like that. And obviously he scored the 4 goals. That's something that you can't take away from him, because he did score 4 goals. But I think it's the manner that we were, that when we went 2-0 up, we just, you know, I don't know what happened. I don't know what their game plan was. Again, you know, some of it has to come to Jody Morris as well, you know, the way that we set up. Because I'm sorry, but no team that like should be challenging for the playoffs or even promotion for that should be defending like we did on Saturday afternoon. That is just unexcusable. I thought it was Clayton's worst game for Swindon in a Swindon Town shirt. I've never seen him play that bad before, ever. You know, Hutton's probably had his best game this calendar year. But even then, that's nowhere near his best towards the end of last year. You know, Brewitt, probably the only positive in defence, but what the fuck is this zonal marking?
Be fair, mate. How can you have any positives in defence when you concede 4?
Yeah, I know. I think in terms of Brewitt, I think, you know, he, in terms of his actual defending himself, I think he puts in some great challenges. Don't get me wrong, and I think he was pivotal to us not conceding anymore. But the fact that he did concede 4, because let's be honest, let's face it, we could have lost that. We could have lost that maybe 6-4. You know, who knows? I mean, so he's probably the only player, but you know.
Well, I'll just
maybe it is. Maybe Sol Bryn can't.
Sorry, just a sec, Rich. For those listening to audio only, that silence was because Rich had to stop to read a comment again that said Sol Bryn is the problem because he can't organise his back 4. That's what he's currently agreeing with.
Yeah. Listen, I think we were lucky to not. I wasn't actually at Cheltenham, by the way. I just won a bit of money. No, honestly. Oh, God, I've lost my point now. Right.
Start again.
Yeah, sorry. No, honestly.
You're going to talk about Bryn?
No, not Bryn. Okay. Bryn. I don't know what's with Bryn. He can't seem to kick the ball over the halfway line as well. That's another thing I've got issues with. There's issues in that team. There is issues in that team, and I don't know exactly what it is. Zonal marking. What the fuck are we doing? Like, do you know what I mean? It just does not work. You do not zonal mark in this team, in this league even. Maybe because obviously Jody Morris has come from an academy background, okay, and he's obviously training these youngsters at Chelsea to obviously do it in the Premier League. But I'm sorry, this is League 2 now, And we don't. No, that's not the way you do it. You've got 6'4" centre halves in League Two, and they're just going to get their head on it. If they see an inch of space, the zonal marking just isn't going to work. I'm sorry, and that we conceded like 2-3 of our goals from that on Saturday. So no, it's not good enough. No, absolutely not. But like I say, I stand by Clayton. I thought Clayton was absolutely terrible. He was the worst player on the pitch on Saturday.
Jack, let me come to you. And leading into one of the points that Rich was making, Charlie Austin did his bit. We did score the goals. So there can't be much criticism levelled from an attacking perspective, can there?
No, obviously not. But again, it goes down to the defence. We should never be conceding 4 against bottom of the league, in my opinion. No one played particularly great in that back line, and we got, punished for it. I think we might have deserved to lose.
Well, we got a bit fortunate just at the end. I mean, the comments were coming in about Bryn, but he did make that save right at the death, didn't he, to stop it becoming a defeat?
Well, yeah, it went down to a corner again, wasn't it? Just like Carlisle.
Yep.
I think Bryn lacks a lot of, talking to his defenders, a lot of communication problems, and coming out for crosses and stuff as well.
Completely. And on that note, Ned, if I bring you in to this comment from PJ saying zonal marking does work if you have players that are competent at defending.
Yeah, and also if you've got tall players, because obviously you're marking an area. If the ball's going over your head and you're 5'8", then someone stood behind you, 6'2", is going to knock it into the goal each time. But oh, fuck's sake, I don't know where to begin with this blooming Swindon team at the moment.
Sorry, Ned. Can I just very
course.
quickly? I never said that zonal marking doesn't work. I said it doesn't work in this league. And it doesn't work with this team. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay. Right. Cheers, Rich.
I just wanted to clear it up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Like I said, it might work in his academy and him trying to build the players up to play for these Premier League teams, but it's not going to work in this team. And it's certainly not going to work in this league. I mean, I saw it against Walsall. Literally, we just left a bloody Montha who's 6'5", and he just got a free header, and we were lucky to get away with it against Walsall last week. So, but that's all I have to say on that.
Well, we'll let Ned come back in at this point.
Sorry, Ned.
That's all right. There'll be people, breathing sighs of relief with you clearing up the end of that point there. So thanks for that, Rich. Oh, Jesus. So I'm in the position of I'm not as harsh on Sandro as a lot of people are. I think the majority of the team is good enough to play well in League One, but the problem is that in League Two, you need certain things. You need certain criteria to be able to be successful in League Two, and that we just we're severely lacking height at the back. We're probably suffering from a lack of height up front as well, if I'm completely honest. And I don't think we've got enough industry in the midfield. I think we're lacking everywhere for this division, but with regards to the performance on Saturday, it just beggars belief. It beggars belief that we play against literally the worst league side in the country. Well, including Wales, should we say? And yeah, we concede 4 goals. It's absolutely criminal. Absolutely criminal. I think Brewitt has been a fantastic signing, in my opinion, so far. I think he's done really well, but I did think he was poor in the last game. I even said in the warm-up, is Craig on tonight? Because he's going to fucking have a go at what I'm saying.
Forget that. I love the fact that you refer to us messing about talking about wrestling music before we go live as the warm-up. Love that. It's like we're all just stretching.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't think it was physically possible to concede 4 goals on Saturday, but sweet Jesus, was I wrong? But there we go. Criminal.
Nick, how's that system of results looking now?
That's thrown out the window, mate. I just, forget about that.
That lasted a week.
It lasted a week. I did say we needed 10 points from the 4 games, and we've messed that up. And as soon as I saw that there was 7 minutes stoppage time,
Yeah, we all
100% knew that they were going to score again. As soon as that came up, it was like inevitable they're going to score again. But I'm going to take a different tact.
Go on.
I don't blame any of the players. It's not their fault.
Fucking hell, Nick.
No, listen,
You're going to have to
listen.
talk your way out of this.
Right. It's not their fault. They've been brought in. Listen,
right now.
let me speak. Let me speak. They've been brought in. They're technically decent players. They've come from good academies, most of them. Some of them have been about a little bit. They are not physically capable, streetwise enough to play in League Two. So they've been brought in to do a job in League Two that they're not capable of doing because of the football that needs to be played. The club is at fault. They've got, if we're a pyramid, we're upside down. What do you build with a football club? The first thing you build is a team that will get a job done. And that job was to get us out of League Two. And we haven't been given the players to get us out of League Two. We've got, call them fancy down footballers, if you like. He can stroke the ball about. He can play nice little 1-2s. There's no personality. There's no bottle. There's no drive. There's no hard players in there. That's why I say I don't blame the players. They've been brought in by whether it's Sandro, and he's got to take the biggest bulk of the blame, but so is Rob Angus, and I'm afraid so is Clem. They've set the scene, and they're too concerned, we're going to have a new stadium. Well, that ain't going to happen for another 12 months. He's told us that. And if we don't get the team on the pitch sorted out, forget the stadium. I'd rather stay at the county ground as it is and have a decent team on the pitch. That's all that matters. So I'll say it again. It is not the players' fault. They've been brought in to do a job that they're not capable of because we've got fucking bad recruitment.
Can I just pick up a point that Nick just said there about the personality in the team? I completely agree with him because if you look like. So Sandro says he does all this, background check-in and all that kind of stuff, and the interview process of bringing in a player and all that sort of stuff. How are they going to fit into the team? How are they going to gel into the team and stuff like that? You look at the players last year. You look at Harry McCurdy. He was obviously like the fire starter, like sort of thing like that. Yeah. And obviously he brought players. Obviously Jack Payne brought his personality out. It's sort of like. Because he was quite a quiet player, but like obviously he came out of his shell when obviously Harry McCurdy and was putting stuff on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and there was personality in that team. And even though we were like, we might not quite get to the playoffs this year, at least the personality in the team might be able to get us there. And we got there in the end. With this team, obviously you've got Charlie Austin, but he's sort of like, he's a veteran now. He's a veteran player. He's come back and he's obviously trying to get the team together. He's not really using his cheeky chappy stuff that he might have done when he was at QPR or when he first came in at Swindon, And I don't feel as if we've really got that player that has that personality that will be able to get us, like lifted. At the moment,
Rich,
it just seems quite dry.
Yeah. Name me one player other than Charlie Austin that you actually give a shit about in that team.
Minto.
Because there ain't one.
No,
they can all walk away. Maybe Blake Tracy, he puts a bit of effort in and he's, can be decent on his day. But say there's no personality, there's no drive.
No, I agree.
There's no one.
That's harsh.
Well, there's not Fifey. There's no one that you'd think, great. I can't wait to see him. He's going to have a cracking game today, apart from Charlie.
There's been no consistency either. The one player that I would have loved to have seen that would have come out of his shell would have been Jacob Wakeland. But, even then, it's just like I'm not like, oh yeah, he's gonna have a cracking game today. It's not like last year when we're like, oh yeah, no, McCurdy's gonna score today. If he doesn't score, he might assist or he might have some kind of goal involvement. I don't see that, And yeah, absolutely, completely agree with you in terms of anybody else apart from Charlie Austin. Like, because we all said it. We all said we needed some personality in this team around January time. And well, we got obviously Charlie Austin back. Great, fantastic. But again, it's like I said, he's come back as a veteran, so he's not really having that much of an impact. He's just trying to get like us organised, and really, we haven't been. So
I don't know how much more of an impact you can have scoring 4 goals in a game.
it's great, yeah, but we're still conceding 4 goals. We're conceding 4 goals.
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
I'm not putting down Charlie Austin. I think having Charlie Austin is great, but we need more. That's what I meant.
I think.
Yeah,
I think
agree with that.
I think as well, though, to kind of echo a little bit Nick's point, I don't think anybody here is actually blaming the players. If we actually realistically look at what we're all saying after the game, we don't have good enough defenders. We don't have good enough midfielders. Our goalkeeper now is questionable. That's no one questioning the players. People are still questioning the recruitment.
I'm questioning the players.
All right.
And the reason for that is, just to balance it, I agree with all the points being made there, but at the end of the day, on that pitch was 11 v 11, 22 players who are all perceived to be League 2 standard, and there should be, as an absolute minimum, a professional pride to do a job. And with all due respect to Rochdale, conceding 4 goals to the bottom of the table is having no professional pride. And if you look at the manner of the goals conceded, fuck me, if I was there, I would have been fuming. I've never left the game early, but having just watched the goals, I would have considered it.
To be fair,
I mean, that's a fair. That is, that's a fair point. But I'm looking just beyond this game. I mean, we've not been good enough arguably since October. So in some ways, kind of Nick's point around, as Joe's pointed out there, Morris has said it himself in one way or another, very hidden way of saying it. We're not good enough, and I think I said it a couple of weeks ago. We're not good enough. I'm not doubting that there are players that we need to pick up on. We've got to be critical to all the players. We criticised Shades at lack of effort when he was the first in the side. He's a different player since Morris, but he was still shit before Morris. I'm not going to, I'm not going to deny that. I don't share the same views about FBT, because for me, FBT isn't as when we're looking at players' attitudes. I know I'm his fanboy, but Wakeland for me screams miles above any of the others when it comes to effort rate, putting on the pitch and things like that. But maybe we look at it, maybe he's not quite good enough yet, but he's a lot younger than FBT, for example. But I just think that, I think every single point that everybody's made, even the point where Ned said he's not really, he's not saying that he's fully defending Sandro. Even some of the points he made were still, who's to blame? Sandro. Because we've been told we were competing for League 2. This was at the beginning of the season. We carried on being told our aim was promotion, and we haven't got a squad good enough for it. For me, I said this a couple of weeks ago, this mentality thing. Yeah, have we got players that could drag us over the line? To be fair, if you've got players of fucking great quality who are putting in effort every game, that will outweigh a fucking 36-year-old centre-back who just puts his head on the line all the time, So I think we've got to find that fine balance, which is what Sandro was supposed to be doing. Sandro was supposed to be buying and picking up these really cheap players who had really good stats, who fitted a persona to get us out of League 2, which is why we've said all along, we can't have this. We're going to showcase fucking talent in League 2, because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And I think, yes, I kind of agree with what Ned was saying a little bit around there's a few players that could definitely punch it in League 1, because it is a slightly different style of football. As you look at, there's players like Scott Twine did better as he played in the Championship versus what he did in League 1, because it's a different style of play, a different approach to the game. But at the end of the day, I don't give a shit whether they're good enough for League 1 or not. At the moment, they need to be good enough for League 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not.
PJ, I have seen your point, and I'm going to come back to that in just a second. And before I hand over to Bev, I just had a couple of tweets in from our good friend Paddy. Good evening, Fools Rush in Mavericks. I think the squad could do with reading my new book, Paddy Stavros, How to Defend and Win Matches. I've heard SDM wants a pop-up book version so that he can colour it in. And then he went on to say, Nick was bang on, bar one or two, this team is bland. There's no one to get the crowd going or for the young fans to latch onto. The young fans today just watch a team constantly changing every 12 months. Ben, you've been waiting very patiently. Now, normally at this point, I'll say it's all been very negative. I'm going to come to you, Ben, to share the positivity. However, I think it's fair to say, judging by our conversation in the WhatsApp chat, even you're struggling to muster up positivity at the moment.
Yeah, well, if you try and pick up positive, you've just got Charlie Austin, and it's a full stop, isn't it, really? I think no one else really stood up to it, and Charlie Austin stood in the way between us and a humiliation on the weekend. For the first time, I'm going to give Morris a little bit of grief.
Yep.
And a little bit of criticism. I agree with Rich with the zonal marking. I think in the last 3 games, we've dropped 3 points in injury time because of zonal marking. We also dropped points at Lane Orient because of zonal marking, and that can be the difference between us and still being in a playoff race. If it didn't work, if it's not working, then drop it until the summer and then do it with players that can work with zonal marking. Our defenders clearly aren't good enough. We've got an academy lad who's 20 playing his first season and a lad fresh out of America who's only played about 50 games in his whole career anyway. It's not going to really properly work. We're not going to defend properly, so just man marking, everyone digging. But it's cost us points. That's his fault. Though I think
we have said, to be fair on that point, for a while now, haven't we? Game management has been poor on and off the pitch.
He's learning himself. He's a great coach, and I think he's going to be a fantastic manager. And I think next season he's going to be an asset to us with his contacts and the way he is. But he's learning himself because this is his first managerial job. And being a League Two club, that's what you've got to put up with managers cutting their teeth a little bit. So he's going to make mistakes. And I think in training he's going to go, do you know what? Fuck it. We're going to go man to man now, which we might do for the rest of the season. We don't know. He might not. Yeah, it's hard picking the bones. I agree what other people say with the squad. I think we've got some really technically, we've got some excellent players. We've got some really, really good technical players who've got lots of ability. To say they were signed on stats, and they've got those stats, but there's just no grunt. What was it Joe said? No grunt and girth or something like that. What she said about the players. There's we're missing an Anthony Grant in midfield.
Bulky and ballsy.
Yeah, bulky and ballsy. We missed that. She's bang on. We need that defensive. We need like that 35, 36-year-old ex-championship defender who's just doesn't make a mistake and will run for a brick wall for you. We missed that solid midfielder, that absolute leader in midfield. We miss the experience of players that can just come on, lads, this is shit. Let's sort this out. And there's just voices in the middle of the park. That team must be so quiet because they're just all that. And the kids playing their first season of football. They'll learn this season will do wonders for their careers because players like Clayton, the baptism of fire, the amount of stuff that he'd worked this season coming straight out of Liverpool Academy to be relied on as our main ever centre back. Brilliant. But this team's just it's horribly imbalanced. This league is full of players that are limited ability, but really good at what they do. We've got none of that. We've got players with lots of ability. The ceiling's quite high, but they're only just starting their footballing journey. So they're going to be inconsistent. They're not going to win games in a row. And they're not going to be able to turn around because they've never had runs like this where everything's just gone shit and they're getting criticism left, right, and centre. And they've got no one to turn to pick them up. They've only got Charlie Austin going, come on, lads. But he's the only one over 30. It's a disgrace. It's just the whole...
Age is but a number, though, surely.
Age is a number, but if you're a kid, if you're 20 years old in your first season of football and you've got fans belting abuse at you and this is shit and this is not good,
I agree with that.
You need someone to pick you up. You need that experience to put their arm around you. Says, right, you are doing a good job. Come on, you just listen to what we do. We all stick together. But they've not got that. And it's an age's number, but there's a experience is a huge thing. It's a
I completely agree. The only sort of thing I would go vice versa, and then I know Ned wants to come in on a particular point as well, and we've got other comments that I want to flash up. If you're talking Clayton, for example, okay, who we've all had positives to say when he first came in the team, and now he's getting a little bit of criticism from some quarters.
Yep.
I agree he's young and in footballing terms inexperienced.
Yep.
But let's not forget he's come from Liverpool.
Yes.
Okay. Where even at youth level, they are under their own pressures. It's not like he's never played in front of a crowd before. It's not like he's never played 90 minutes before. It's not like he's not had to go and do a job before. And this is the same for all the players. You know, we've said about McEachran, who got a bit of criticism for the first time since he signed. He's an England youth international player. You know, he won a World Cup at under 19 level. You've got other players very similar. You know, Hutton's not the oldest, but he's had Football League experience. We're not talking about people who have never, ever played the game before.
No, but academy football and league football, men's football is different. Like
very disrespectful when you see teenage players bursting on the scene and doing a fantastic job.
Andy Cook from Bradford City, who's about 6'5", about 31 years old, going, "I'm going to fucking break your legs today, son."
Okay.
And being like all just kicking at his heels and just smashing him every given opportunity because of the physicality of the game, the mind games, the actual men's football.
But what happened to if you're good enough, you're old enough?
That goes on that doesn't happen in the academy game because it's different, because it's all about technical players playing out from the back, slow playing from the back. League Two, bosh, have it.
I get the feeling Woody wants to come in on this, but before that, Ned wants to pick up on something you said earlier, and then I'll bring Woody in on this point.
No, well, you might as well continue on this point for now.
It's just that you can't compare academy football to men's football.
No, but you can compare football to football.
Yeah, it's academy football to League Two football.
That's like saying someone coming from America can't play in this country because it's a different country.
All right. Like, how many times has an academy team gone well on the JPT? And
well, they normally beat us.
Everybody beats us at the moment.
They never get through to knockout phases because they always get bitten by the bigger experience, even when it's just a half a team of kids and half a team experience. They never, the big Chelsea boys, they never do well because they just get bullied and beaten by the experienced league football team. Because that's just how it is. These kids need to learn, they need to grow. It's all about, that when you're 20, Clayton's not even fully developed yet as a man. He's not bulked up. He's not got the muscles yet that he will do when he's 23, 24, 25. That's going to come in time, and that comes in games, and that comes in looking after yourself and eating carbs and training every day for years, that you can tone up properly.
I think I'd 100% agree with what Ben's saying, Fifey, that these young kids, and they are mostly pretty young players, are coming up against experience, shithouse League Two players that know the dark arts, and we're not capable of matching it. And that's the problem. We've got the balance is, I don't know who said it earlier, the balance is all wrong. For whatever reason, we got rid of our experienced players, and there are probably reasons behind the scenes that we don't know about, but they've gone. They haven't been replaced. And then we're relying on too many, as I said earlier, good ball-playing technical players that can play the football, yes, at academy level, but doing it at League Two, it's a different ball game. And you can say football's football, but it isn't. We all know what League Two's like. And you look at a team like Stevenage. They've had a few bad results, but they're shithouse league because Steve Evans knows what sort of players he needs to get out of this league. And we haven't got those players at the moment to get out of this league. And as I said earlier, the club is at fault, not the players, because they've been brought in to do a specific job that they're not ready for, unfortunately.
Hang on, because Woody's been waiting longer than everyone to come in on this, so let him have his say first.
I would mildly agree with Ben if we were talking about Harrison Minturn, Abu Kanu, players like that. Not when you've had a Premier. Now, let me tell you, who was in George McEachran's team when he was in the youth setup? Mason Mount burst onto the Premier League scene against men when he was 18 years old. Callum Hudson-Odoi burst onto the Premier League scene against men when he was 18 years old. That's a load of bollocks. He's can't. Like I get the League Two clobberness thing. Comes back to a bit to Nick's point about if it's that obvious that Premier League ex-academy players can't win League Two or can't get you out of League Two, then why the fuck are we recruiting them in the first place?
I think if
That's
one
it,
of
that's
the
it.
players into
No,
your squad is fine, but not your whole squad. Swindon's whole squad.
No, but our whole squad isn't. Our whole squad isn't. Hutton
I just want to
isn't.
pick up a. I just
Hang
want
on,
to
Rich.
pick
Hang
up
on,
a-
Rich. Hang on, Rich. Let Woody
FBT.
finish.
Average age of our squad's
Hudson is
20.
Ben, let Woody finish.
Hutton isn't. FBT isn't. Brewitt isn't. Arguably, Louis Reed wasn't. Ben Gladwin wasn't. Let's not forget these guys only left a couple of months ago. Okay, Angus MacDonald wasn't. Charlie Austin definitely isn't. We've got players with experience in there. So it's it's not a case of just we can't look at it and go, oh, we're going to look at the fact that we've brought in a load of youngsters and they're not we give them a bit of a chance because it's their first professional season and stuff. I'm sorry, but Nick will know as well. He watched that Crystal Palace thing. The fucking pressure to get into these academies in the first place, the amount of pressure that you get in under 18s, under 21s football, under 23 football, to get you tell that to little Charlie who couldn't even get into fucking Sutton United's first team or under 23's team, and you're saying that a Premier League academy player can't cut it at League Two level. If he can't cut it at League Two level, he's not good enough. I don't care whether he's playing against experienced players. If he can't cut it, he's not good enough.
It's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying. Right, I'll a little example of you go back to 2010. Scott Cuthbert next to Gordon Greer. Scott Cuthbert was absolutely outstanding, and we got to the playoff final. Absolutely brilliant with Gordon Greer. Gordon Greer leaves, and he gets another Sean Morrison, a young Sean Morrison next to him. He's bloody awful. They just need that experience next to him to talk him through. There's nothing wrong with playing young players. Absolutely nothing wrong. I love to see young players. McEachran has been brilliant this season. He's probably one of our shining lights so far that's come in, and he's only played a few months. He's been absolutely fantastic. And this is his first real chance in men's football. And he's only a small little wee man, and he's only 22 and little runs about everywhere. It's quality. But I'm just saying, when you've got the majority of your squad, when the spine of your team, and the spine of our team, apart from Austin's the only player we've got that's 30. And then we've got, Williams, who's played at Shadowda games. But FBT, how many games has he played his career? 80? There's not that many. He's played, they've not actually played that many league games between them.
So would you prefer, just so I understand exactly where this point is,
a balance.
Would you prefer a 32-year-old who who averages 10 games a season, for example, or a 23-year-old who's been playing professional football since he was 17? Which one of those is better, so I understand what we're looking for? Someone old or someone that's played games?
Oh, if you've got a 23-year-old that's played 150 games, you go for the 23-year-old that's played 150 games. Absolutely.
But he's not 30, and your main point so far has been we haven't got enough 30-year-olds.
No. Experience is what I'm saying. You're not listening. I'm saying experience. We need experience. They need that.
But you keep highlighting players' ages specifically.
Yeah, I'm using age as an example because most players who played more games are older.
Right, okay.
I think before we look at the age thing as well, I've just had a quick look and I won't be able to get it all. What's that noise?
Yeah, well, there is a noise coming through again.
If you look at the age thing, have a look before we go too much into that, how old or how young, should I say, mid-20s, Leyton Orient's squad is.
Yeah,
the team currently top of the league.
Mm-hmm.
They've only got, from what I could see, 2 regular players that are 30 or over. So, yeah, I finish on that point. That's me done.
Let's circle this thing all the way back then. Ben was making a valid point regarding zonal marking, and Ned, you messaged to say you wanted to come in on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think with the players that we've got, if we went man to man, I think, honestly, I know it sounds really stupid, but I think we'll be worse off. We've only got 2 players who can head a ball at the moment, and that's Austin and Brewitt. Those are the only 2 players who can win ahead in a 50-50 environment. You look against the teams that we've played against in recent times, Walsall had probably 5 or 6 players over 6 foot. From any corner situation, if we went man to man, we're going to get absolutely walked all over. So I don't think it's going. We've just got the wrong players, and in this division, 100%, we've just got the wrong players in this division. So, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference, which is unfortunate. Just wanted to put that out there. Sorry.
No, that's all right. And Rich, there was something you wanted to add into the previous debate as well.
Oh no, it was no, it was just going back to the point, obviously, that Woody was making. Obviously, he was going through, obviously, the Chelsea players that McEachran was coming through, and I think a good example of a defender that's actually, he's not the biggest player, but he's shone, and it's a good comparison to somebody like Clayton at the moment is Mark Gihai, Crystal Palace centre half. He's tiny. He's only 5'8", but he's Crystal Palace's captain. He was, and he's in England international as well. He's in the squad. There's no excuses. There's no excuses for these academy players. I mean, he's very experienced. He started off at Swansea, and now he's at Palace as captain. There's no reason why these players, and I go back to Woody's point, obviously, about the Palace Academy, watching that documentary and everything like that, and how hard it is. If they're coming down to us, it should be a doddle for them, and they should bring that experience from the academy, and yeah, obviously it's going to take time to fit in. Obviously, yes, it is a different environment, but there's no excuses as to why you can't adapt. And that's the thing. That's one of the main things you learn as an academy player is being able to adapt. And if you can't adapt in football, in any football league team, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be playing in the professional game.
Okay.
Can I just also say something? So,
Yeah.
I genuinely believe, and I might be completely wrong once again, but I genuinely believe that Sandro, Clem, Rob Angus, I believe they all thought, and whether this is true or not, I don't know. I believe that they all thought that this is going to be a gimme for this season. Look, at the start of the season, they saw the list of teams that we've got, play against. Oh, bloody hell, they're rubbish. Right, let's formulate, a great team for next year. That's what I genuinely believe has happened for this season, because they bought a load of players, who didn't have a huge amount of experience, but this season we go up this season, and then next year they'll kick on. That's what I genuinely believe. So, essentially what they need to do at the end of this season, because let's be honest, it's fucking dead rubbers now. Let's be honest. They need to go back to the drawing board, and what do we need to get out of this league, and not plan a year ahead in advance. That's what they need to do.
Nick, I'm going to bring you in on a comment that PJ initially made, and then there was a follow-up comment, which I'm just looking for in the chat here. I partly agree with the follow-up. I don't necessarily agree with PJ's comment, and I'll explain why. So here's the original one. I think half the team is also not fit enough. Pre-season was messy. And the follow-up was, pre-season was a farce, was short, not enough games, and didn't know who the manager was. Now, for me, and like I say, Nick, I'm throwing it over to you, but just to put some context around that, I agree about pre-season wasn't run as efficiently as I would like. We all spoke about that at the time. And if we were still talking maybe 5, 6, 7 games into the season, I would agree, I think, with PJ's point. But with how far we are into the season, pre-season cannot still be a contributing factor to fitness, because we're what, 6 months on from there now? Have they been doing no fitness work since pre-season?
Well, it makes you wonder, Fifey, because that's one of the first things that Jody Morris said, is that the team aren't fit enough. So there's obviously been a problem in that area. And I think it goes back to how we've recruited, that we've recruited these young, very technically good, fit well into a spreadsheet players that we've brought in. And so it's not like a Lou Macari side where fitness was the be all and end all, which you had to do. to go through games because they said that they would win the games in the last 10 minutes and everybody else was flagging. And if you listen to some of the recent interviews we've had in guests on, Fabrizio talked about the first thing Paolo said when he came in, look how unfit League Two players are. We will be the fittest team in the league and we will run them into the ground. Now, we did that, but he had decent players as well and players that could do what the manager wanted. I think part of the problem now is Jody Morris has got players he doesn't feel are good enough to play how he wants them to play. He's inherited players that can't do the job that he wants. And on top of that, they're not fit enough. Do we see any players busting a gut in the last 10 minutes to get, into the penalty area, to drive forward, to make those chances, to make those runs? Who's doing that? Who's getting those last ditch tackles in? Who's putting that total 110% effort? It's not happening on the pitch. I think there is. Well, there's so many issues as we've all said, but yeah, fitness is one of the factors that has cost us this season, and to go with a mental strength to go with it, and bringing in, we've brought in academy players that have done well at youth level and have been in England under 17, under 18 teams, but it is different. And I was reading a bit Danny Wilson's book when he come into men's football, and he said one of the first things that happened, basically a player had him by the throat. He said, if you don't put the effort in, you're going to be in big trouble, sunshine, because I've got a mortgage to pay out there. You put bloody effort in on the pitch. Now, how many of our players are putting that much effort in that means so much to them that they've got to go that extra yard? It ain't happening on the pitch, I'm afraid.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I've got a couple of comments I want to show to Ben and to Rich next. But before I do that, Jack, let me bring you back in, because a comment was made earlier about the character in the squad and people for younger fans to look up to. Now, if you were to go through the rest of the panel, we could all pick out players when we were sort of teenage years and onwards that were our idol players. Is there anyone in particular in the current squad that you look at, and when you're playing football, you're like, I want to be as good as them? That they're hands down the best player at Swindon. I want to be like them. That's the name you want on the shirt. That kind of thing.
No, not really. I think I don't really have one, to be honest, because I think there's a lot of there's no players that stay for long enough. I don't get to see too many. Every year it's like a full 11 change. And it sort of becomes like it's regular seeing a whole new midfield or a whole new back line every season. And I think that's something we need to change. We need to get players on a long-term contract instead of, sacking them off after a season.
Yeah. No, absolutely makes sense. Okay, Ben, I'll come to you first, and then Rich, I'll give you first response to however Ben reacts to these. There's two comments I want to flash up regarding, you were talking about game management a little while ago, and I think these link into that. So the first one, I think both might have been from Claire, actually. The first one I flashed up was, if Lindsay had still been in charge the last few games with the same results, where would the blame be led? Players, Sandro, coach, manager? Is Morris avoiding some of the blame here? Which you quite rightly said you were going to criticise him for the first time. There was then a follow-up comment, which I'm just scrolling to here, which again, it was Claire. Maybe a coach-manager needs to adapt to League Two as much as players do. So what's your thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, I agree. I agree in both points. And it's to say this is Morris learning the trade. Obviously, his background is Premier League, Championship, and Academy. So he's never done. League Two is its own sort of style. Let's get fish. That's what he says. I read a comment on the private chat bit that Christian put, just saying they're all, do we think they're all cloggers? No, they're not all cloggers. Football has developed a little bit, even in League Two levels. They do play it out the back. And there's only a few teams like Stevenage and like Sutton who are your typical League Two team. But there's still the physicality of League Two that still remains, and you need to match that. And I think Morris is still learning how League Two works and how it clicks. I think he'll be stronger for it next season, but I think he's made mistakes along the way, and I think at the end of the season he'll open to that. And as long as he learns through these mistakes, he'll get better. But yeah, I agree with Claire. I think League Two is its own style, it's its own way, and I think players who've not had experience of that need to learn pretty quickly.
Rich?
I'm with Claire. I do think if we had Lindsay, sorry, just something went down the throat. I think if we had Lindsay, I think we'd all be screaming to have him out. It would be like Lindsay out and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, whenever you bring a new manager in, you do have to give them time, and especially when you've got a name like Morris, that we know. Well, we don't know, because we can hope that he's gonna do something with our team. There's no guarantees in football, some things work out, some things don't work out. I think like a lot of people, like he said himself, he is obviously planning for next season, and he's obviously trying to implement what he wants out of a team into the current team that he's got, to see if those players will work in his team next season. Now, obviously, I think because when he came in, he was almost as if like, right, we're at the right side of the table. We should be aiming for playoffs and everything like that. Obviously, it's not quite turned out like that, and now we've taken a significant setback. We lost a couple of games of his first few games, and then he got a win, and now we've got two really stubborn draws back to back, which is obviously a massive shame. I think obviously playing against Harrogate, that didn't really sum up what Morris has done. I don't think Morris has brought anything so far new to this team in terms of anything positive. But again, I am with that. He is obviously trying new things, and I do think, what we would like to think is that they might hopefully pull off. But again, like we say, we won't know. I think now is a little bit of a write-off, as much as it pains me to say it. But yeah, I think that it is a bit of a write-off now this season, and I think we do need to really start focusing on pre-season, having a really good positive pre-season. We should already be having a list of players that we want to bring in for next season, whether or not we have to buy them or whether or not they're going to be free agents, and starting to find that player that we're going to build a team around. And we'll obviously have to wait and see, and hopefully Morris will be able to bring in the type of football that he wants to bring in, and hopefully it'll be successful. In terms of Scott Lindsay, though, yeah, it's sort of a little bit the pot calling the kettle black, but again, like you say, need to give the manager time.
Woody, I've left Arch comment on the screen here because I'm interested in your views on this. I said when Jody Morris came in, it would demonstrate if the issue was the manager or the players. I'm not saying Scott Lindsay was the right appointment, but a pattern is certainly emerging.
I mean, I was probably one of those that, I wasn't surprised that Scott Lindsay had gone, but at the same time, we got to bear in mind that he wasn't sacked either. He did actually leave us. The pressure might have been on, who knows? But as I said all along, we were in the playoffs when we weren't, and you and I, Fifey, we were both really excited about Morris's appointment. I think the more I think about it, the more I think we probably shot ourselves in the foot, because if we ended up going against Morris and Morris started, if he got sacked, so to speak, which I don't think he will because of the length of his deal, but if he got sacked, you're kind of Morris is a very well respected coach across the coaching network, and there's one thing that coaches do, and that is stick together and get each other's backs. But so if I often think that if we got to the stage where we've only given Morris, not we as fans, but the club have only given Morris 2 months or whatever, and we're willing to sack a manager of his credentials, that makes us so unattractive as a club. Because we can't offer money. Morris is an opportunity. Morris has got an opportunity. It does come down to, I think, as Arch said there, that it's he hasn't got the players to work with. I mean, we've said many a times the signings that have done really well, especially under Morris, weren't Sandro signings. Charlie Austin was always going to do well because he could still do it in League One. There's no question about it, really. And obviously McEachran played for Morris previously, so he's reached out to him. Even if you look at the other things, like Lavinier played for him, and I know Lavinier defensively is a bit off, but he's not a left back, to be fair. So he's not left footed, so he's always going to get caught out on the left hand side. But even he is probably, in my opinion, one of our stronger players. Was also coached by Morris. So it's I just think that I think the fans will be a bit more forgiving because it could be a signing, if you like, of intent, because it shows how serious we are about developing the young players. It does show that, but it brings it down to the fact that I think it is almost an insult, in my opinion, to Jody Morris that someone like Sandro Di Michele, who's not been around the top levels of football, is picking the players for him. I think we're talking about a guy who's managed some of the best, whatever anybody says, some of the best young players in England. And we're relying on a guy who reads off a spreadsheet to pick the players for him. And that's the problem for me. Don't get me wrong, this spreadsheet evidently might have found the likes of Wakeling and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think that Morris is going to be the guy who's going to develop our young players. He is going to be the guy who's going to develop the profit, if we want to use the term. But we need somebody else in there who's not going to pick the young players. We need somebody in there who's picking the experienced players that Ben was talking about and Nick was talking about. That's where he's going to need a hand. That's where he's going to, because that's why you have these director of football, technical director models, because they are there to help the recruitment strategy. You can't expect him to develop somebody else's young players, which is the case here. He'll develop them probably as best as he can, but I'd much rather have him go in. Let's go watch Crystal Palace under 21s. I want that player, rather than Sandro Di Michele running up on a spreadsheet and Dave, who played for Worthing 5 times and scored 3 goals. Let's sign him up. As you know, it wouldn't be based on goals, would it be done on blinking box entries? How many box entries somebody's had? I think I'll still stand by it. I'm not going to go against Morris because I think he's kind of made it clear that they're not his players. And I think if we're sat here in 10 months' time or whatever, and he's had a summer to arguably either pick his own players or work closely with STM to pick the players, because I don't believe that Scott Lindsay and Di Michele were working together in terms of picking those players. I genuinely don't believe it. So it's I think mainly because Lindsay didn't really have a clue himself. To be fair, he doesn't really have many connections himself, whereas Jody Morris obviously does. Yeah, I mean, Scott Lindsay will have connections in the lower leagues, but it's but either way, like I think I don't want to look at Scott Lindsay too much because at the end of the day, when, as I said all along, when he left us, we had a squad that were in 6th, 7th place. So it's regardless of which way you look at it, whether we had more games played or whatever, we were in a higher league position with players that were meant to improve in January and they didn't. So it does, for me, boil down to player recruitment has to be the thing. We can't, we look at, you can look at even the top levels. You look at bloody Tottenham. Look how many top level managers they've had in and still haven't won a fucking trophy in 10 years. They've had so many top, and why do you think that is? That's because they put all of their bloody funds into keeping the likes of Kane and Son and not recruiting, the bigger end players. So, and I think if, I think I'm with Jody Morris all the way. I think, but if I'm sat here in 10 months and he's had his own pre-season, so to speak, and he's had his own recruitment and he's still not doing very well, then we question Jody Morris. But as it stands for me, Jody Morrison is managing Sandro Di Michele's team, which haven't replaced all the better players and all the more experienced players that went.
Okay, that seems fair. Let me flip the coin slightly, Ned. We're obviously fairly upset, angry, disappointed, whichever emotion different people are portraying. But are we forgetting to maybe give Rochdale a bit of respect? Because we're saying we've conceded 4 goals to bottom of the league, but from their perspective, they're bottom of the league and scored 4 goals against a team that some people are still claiming are in a playoff contention.
Those some people are probably people who haven't seen us play for the last 2 or 3 months. I should imagine they just looked at the league table and made assumptions. No, they've had to score their goals. I mean, their second goal was an absolute worldie, to be fair. So you've got to give them some credit, but we've just made it so easy for them. That's the problem. But someone's got to put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, they're credit where credit's due. Rochdale have scored 4 goals and probably should have scored 5 goals against us. So yeah, but at the end of the day, it's Swindon Town. We should.
Swindon Town.
Yeah. Whether the whole thing about the budget, being in the bottom 4 of the budget in the league or whatever, for me, that's got to be bullshit. Because I'm sorry, you look at our players, and you look at their flipping Village players, and there's no way that they're paying around about the same amount as wages as we are. I'm not sure if no, I'm not going to say it.
Say it. Go on. Say it. Say it.
He's one of my heroes, so apologies. I know he's probably not watching because he's going to stay in bed because he's got work tomorrow, I'm sure. But Fraser Digby's wife, if she was still here offering out the blowjobs, that's possibly how they've got the money so low for each of the players. God only knows. But, I'm about to be slated by Cozzy now on the chat, and so I'll just switch my chat off for a moment.
Moving swiftly on. Let me link this back into the episode title. And all things considered, let me ask you, were we on Saturday unfortunate, or was what happened unforgivable? Woody's disappeared. So, Jack, let me start with you.
Unforgivable. You can't score. You can't concede 4 goals against a team that are going to be National League next season. So, yeah, unforgivable.
Okay, Nick?
Yeah, when your manager comes out and says we were 2-0 up, but we were absolute rubbish. So we got, well, as everybody said, I mean, I've only seen the highlights. We could have conceded 2 more goals after they scored. And as I said earlier, when 7 minutes stoppage time comes, and you know exactly what's going to happen, it's nowhere near good enough. If we've got aspirations of getting into playoffs, it's nowhere near good enough.
Rich?
Under no circumstance should you really be conceded. Well, from a 2-0 lead within about 3 minutes, going back to 2-2, when you started so brightly, there's no excuse for it whatsoever, and I completely agree with Morris. We just were not good enough at all. So many mistakes, so many basics. We can't do the basics of defending properly, and when you can't do the basics, then I'm sorry, there's absolutely no excuse, and yeah, it's unforgivable.
Ned?
Unforgivable. Underlined multiple times, highlighted. It's completely unforgivable.
Ben?
Yeah, unforgivable, really. Rochdale scored 12% of their entire season's goals against us. That's unforgivable. Well, you're 2-0 up in 15 minutes. You win the game. And no matter who you're playing, yeah, that's unforgivable. It's just you don't drop it from that position against a team. With all respect to Rochdale, they're going to get relegated. They're going to be a non-league team next year. And we've blown it.
Woody, just as you disappeared, I asked, leading into the episode title, were we unfortunate or was Saturday unforgivable?
Well, depends who you're asking. Unforgivable for somebody's wife to do that to other players. But equally probably unforgettable for those players.
My word.
Okay. No.
Evening, Jack.
I suggested the title. I don't care whether it was bottom of the league or top of the league. You don't go take a lead like that twice and then still draw the game. It just hurts. Not hurts. It's just a little bit more fucking annoying that it was against Rochdale, who, as Ben said, I think they'd only scored 5 goals in the last 7 games or something. So it's unforgivable for me against anybody. Yeah.
5 feet. It was also predictable. I was driving back from Aylesbury on radio, 2-0 up. I go, yes, come on. And Di's with me. And she said, shouldn't get too excited. Yeah, it's Swindon. And by the time we got a bit further down the road, it's 2 each. Then I'm walking the dog and it's 3-2. Then get back with the dog and it's 3-3. And then it's 4-3. We're in front. And it's, yeah. Of course you are. You ain't going to get anything out of this. So unfortunately, it's entirely predictable, and that's from someone from my wife who don't even like football.
Mate,
I think it says it all.
Let's go on.
As I said, I think it says it all when the amount of Rochdale fans I saw that were disappointed that they didn't win the game.
Yeah.
That says it all for me. Like our good friend Shah was devastated. I think the fact that she got a prediction of Charlie Austin scoring a hat trick, and then still drawing the game. I think the amount of Rochdale fans I've seen just be like, how did we not win that game? Why is somebody who's threatened relegation, pretty much guaranteed to go down, as Jack said, why are they going? How did we not win that game? It's just
Nick, if it's any consolation whatsoever, it wasn't too dissimilar for me. I was out in Birmingham all afternoon and evening on Saturday with a couple of mates, and every time we were in one bar and we were 2-0 up, and I was like, oh yeah, this is good. I'm in for a great Saturday afternoon here, lads. And every time we moved to a different bar, there was another goal, to the point of we were getting martinis delivered, and it was just like, fucking hell, 4-4, you can take this fucker back. I don't want this now.
Ridiculous. So that's why you got ratted then.
So angry.
Understandable.
So angry.
It makes you wonder, though, general question for everybody. If it was the other way round and Rochdale took the lead and took a 2-0 lead and then all of that, and then we scored that last-minute equaliser, what would have our emotions have been at that point, apart from still being a little bit pissed off?
So I still think the majority would be pissed off because it was Rochdale.
Yeah, I think we had this chat last week, actually, when Fifey said, would you prefer, after the Orient game, would you prefer a last-minute equaliser against bottom of the league or a game like the Orient game? And we went, well, we prefer the Orient game because you'd still be pissed off if you let a last-minute goal against Rochdale and drew. I'm pissed off. So that answers your question, doesn't it, Fifey, from a few weeks back?
It absolutely does. Stop moving bars then. Yeah, it wasn't my choice. You've been out with me. I'm just a follower. It's not really my scene, so I just go where everyone else is going. Does anyone else have anything they want to add about the game specifically before we move on?
No, it's just we're all Mystic Med and we all knew what was going to happen. Once that 7 minutes went up,
it was unforgivable. Now can it be forgettable?
Yeah. Well, if
unfortunately, probably not.
Sorry, Ben, go on.
Unfortunately.
I just, at the end of the season, when it's done and we finished wherever we finished, I want to look back at this game and just try and remember it for Charlie Austin's 4 goals. Because that was brilliant. And I think if we do it on a positive.
Charlie Austin scored 4 goals, didn't they?
Charlie Austin scored 4 goals. We end it on some sort of positive of what a tremendous effort by a terrific servant to the club. Brilliant. Well done, Charlie. And he's really put the effort in and he's dragged us through that.
Ben, is Sarah nearby?
She's just over there.
Sarah, we got a message come through for you from Joe. It says, Ben, tell Sarah I haven't forgotten. I'll hopefully catch you Saturday.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
There you go. Ben's like, what?
you messaging Joe?
Anyway.
Oh,
Ben.
Sarah's cheating, Ben.
Joe?
With Joe.
not our Joe. Not Farmer Joe.
No,
What, would that make it any better for you, Ben? To be fair, he did call her his sister on Friday. So.
Oh, waiting for that one. Waiting for that. I thought I was waiting for that.
Ben did make one interesting point just at the start of that sentence, though, and it is the last thing I want to ask you before we move on. I mentioned it in the intro, and I think I mentioned it as part of one of my questions for Woody. But again, I'll go around you all. Ned, I'll start with you. As we sit here now, the stat is we're 8 points from the playoffs and 8 points from our worst finish ever. Which is more likely?
Well, it's our worst finish ever, isn't it?
Okay.
You can't base any form of promotion playoff push at the moment from our performances. So if it's one or the other, it's got to be the worst one, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ben?
I don't think either's going to happen. I don't think this is going to be a worse finish, but I don't.
That's not what I asked. I said which is more likely.
At the way we're playing right now, from the last 2 games, possibly 3, you'd have to say the latter. I don't even want to say it.
Okay.
But obviously football's weird, and hopefully it changes.
Jack?
I think it's obviously the worst finish ever.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, most likely to be the worst finish out of the 2, but I think we'll be where we are.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, I agree with Nick. I think there's worse teams in this league, but I think also I agree with Ben. The results aren't really showing at the moment, so it's very difficult to say really. But I don't think Jody Morris is as bad as Phil Brown. So because I'm pretty sure he was the one where we had our worst finisher. Am I right?
No, it was in the 80s, but Phil Brown finished about 13th, 14th.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I think I'd say I don't think we're as bad as that.
And Woody?
I kind of a little bit agree with what Cosy put up there. To be fair, I think we're probably closer to the playoffs because teams below us are a lot, not as good. And I think that, if we had lost to Rochdale on Saturday, it might have been a different answer. But given that, we are still somehow capable of beating teams that are around us or above us at the moment, I think I'd probably say we're a bit closer to that, because I think we'll beat Stevenage. I think we'll beat
Mansfield and Bradford.
Mansfield. I think we'll beat them. But then we'll go and fucking lose to Crawley on the last game of the season or something. But yeah, so I would say for that reason, I think if it was between the 2, I think we'd still get the thing. But I think we're where we are now.
Okay. Let's move on then, and a quick roundup this week for Swindon Town women, because the first team's game was postponed, Woody, for waterlogged pitch. So just a quick word on the under-18s who won 3-1 and therefore their title charge that we were talking about just a couple of weeks ago, it's still on.
Yeah, it's still on. They got a break in with the cup action this weekend, but it's still on, and hopefully at least one team is playing decent attacking football within the club, minus the first team who play half decent football as well. But maybe hopefully still a trophy to come home. I think it will go down to the wire in that league, and then the development drew 3-3 again. I think for the second time in 4 weeks, I think it was, that they've drawn 3-3 with Plymouth. That's a stat you want to look up, see how often that happens in football. But obviously the first team was called off for waterlogged pitch, which is a bit of a strange one. But didn't think it was that bad in Fairford.
No, well, evidently it seemed to be the case. And sending well wishes to former Swintown Women's coach Dan Jones, who was scheduled to be with us tonight, but unfortunately is struggling with pneumonia at the moment. So sending our best wishes to him. I know he'll either be watching in or listening back. We were talking earlier today, but yes, he's not very well, and he apologises for not being here.
Just on that note as well, Fifey, congratulations to KP and Ali.
Yes.
Obviously Ali, first team physio, and KP, women's assistant manager, as well, on the birth of, and I should have looked at the name properly, I think it's Michael. I'm sure it's Michael. As well, on the birth of baby boy. So congratulations, Ali. Look forward to seeing you back on the football pitch in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, congratulations to the entire family. Dan says there should be a compilation video made to show the amount of times the cat.
William, not Michael.
Thank you. Should be a compilation video to show the amount of times the cat has walked across Fifey's screen, or times he's had to put the cat on the floor. I'm sure Craig is already working on that for you.
5-hour clip special. Fifey did that.
But excluding the time that he jumped himself into the door frame.
Oh no, that'd be the end. That'd be the big bit at the end. I love it of his arse just there. There we go.
Okay, well, we're going to dip into the STFC mailbag next and discuss a few things that have been happening around the club of late. But before we get into the ones flashing along the bottom of the screen, we've got something a bit special lined up for particularly one of our panelists tonight, but also a couple of viewers. We say all the time, we love getting feedback. We appreciate constructive criticism. We love the fact we get a lot of positive feedback. But there was one particular bit of feedback that we got recently that I'm pleased to announce has been resolved. And those with let's say sensitive hearing will know what that is. And we've got a little video for you now. That's right. Thank you very much to Sarah herself, who managed to put a little video together of her changing the battery in Ben's smoke alarm after we had a good few comments come in asking what the beeping was in two episodes last week. Sarah decided to take it upon herself to change the battery and also put a little slideshow together proving that she'd done it. Ben, how happy are you that that has been done now?
I didn't notice that it's been fixed, actually.
Ben, you didn't even realise when it was on the blinker.
Well, no, I just ignored it.
Everybody else did.
It's been white noise. But, you know, fair play, because I encourage Sarah to be independent woman.
I am waiting for this cushion to go flying across the screen.
So I say good for her. Good for her, getting off and getting it done.
As does Mish, who says, thank God for Sarah. Ben, you are useless. Jack, you must be very proud of your mother.
I also didn't notice that it was fixed.
Oh dear, let's get this back. Let's get this back on track.
Well, thank God Sarah put her colouring down for 5 minutes.
She did put her
Change the battery.
I must get some new pens for getting it done.
For God's sake.
Some crayons.
This has backfired horribly on Sarah. You're all taking the piss out of her. Ned, there's only one place to start, and there's a new international at the county ground.
Oh, of course. I mean, was it in doubt? Was it ever
Never in doubt?
Never in doubt.
I mean, as Ben whatever side I'm pointing to, Ben rightly said he's the most improved player in the Swindon squad. and it's well deserved. I think he's been a bit under the radar. I think he's been his performances have just been getting better and better of late, as far as I'm concerned. I think whoa, Zuma, Kurt Zuma's back.
Fucker just bit me and then knocked over my water as he ran off.
Did you just knock your cat out, Five?
I wish I'd knocked my fucking cat out.
Yeah, don't put that one on the cat highlights.
No. Got no fucking water left. Carry on.
Two assists on Saturday, by the way, for Shane.
Exactly.
On Saturday, came off the bench to score, unfortunately, a consolation goal against Carlisle, but was a big factor in turning that game around. And he's had quite a lot of cameos off the bench. Fortunately, he let himself down a little bit against Walsall, didn't he? He didn't really kick on when we really needed to when he starts, but off the bench, he's been brilliant. Jack likes him, one of his favourite players. Jack likes Shade. You do. Tell me
is this true, Jack?
I didn't say favourite players, but I quite like him. I say quite a lot of the time that I think he'll go off the bench and score.
I mean, apart from Charlie Austin, he's got to have the most goal contributions out of all the Swindon players in recent months, surely.
Yeah, well, Jack called it against Carlisle. He said Shade would come off bench and score today, and he did. He's always said he scored a winner, but he didn't. But there you go.
Well, it has to be said. Congratulations, whether it's Shade or Sade. Any player getting international call-ups deserves to be congratulated, and it's the latest in a long line of random internationals that we've managed to get. I still remember in my much younger years being strangely ecstatic when Shakes got called up for Trinidad and Tobago for no obvious reason whatsoever. But there we go.
Who was he? What country was that? That was
Guadeloupe.
Yeah.
Who?
The melon.
Miguel Dominguez.
Yeah, Miguel Dominguez. Yeah, it was something like
sure it was like Guadeloupe.
Yeah, random.
Never even heard of that.
Sounds like a dodgy roller coaster.
Yeah. Guadeloupe.
Was it Les Canal Jean Francois was Haiti as well?
Yeah,
Haiti,
Haiti. And then some
Thomas
bigger
de
name
Seville
players. Thomas de Seville,
yeah. What was he?
Yeah, he was Tobago. I think.
Oh, was he Tobago as well?
I think he was from Tobago.
Oh, this is going to be a quiz question that old mate's going to do, isn't it?
Oh, this is good, yeah.
Played for bizarre countries across the world.
Did Brett Pittman have a call up for Gibraltar whilst we was no,
that was Kieran.
No, it was
Guernsey or
Island.
AC says the Sevi was Togo.
Just got
Togo.
that.
That was at Togo.
Togo. We thought it was amazing because he played for Togo.
And of course, we had an Iraqi international as well in Kazim. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
the greatest Iraqi that I've ever seen. Yes.
What a player he was.
Yes,
Anyway.
Yes, Kazim, the greatest Iraqi that I've ever seen. What a song.
If you think of any more random internationals that have played for Swindon, do fire them through in the chat. I can see Woody's still.
Mike's going to get mental in a minute. Mike's going to be ripping them up. This is going to be a quiz in the summer.
Yeah.
I can count now.
100%.
Is this true? Was he on the same team bus as Adebayor when they got shot at?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I saw.
wow.
I saw the. I actually watched an interview with that the other day when he first joined Swindon, and he talked about it.
Oh wow! I didn't realise that.
There you go.
It caught a few fans off guard, Woody, when the team for Bristol City's reserve game or youth game today got announced, and Kaji was playing for them. But when we were discussing this in our WhatsApp chat earlier today, it transpires it's not as perhaps strange as some people think.
No, I think I thought about it a little bit, and then I remembered. I think Mark said it as well that it's not unusual when you've got an under 23s player on loan and they don't necessarily play the play 90 minutes because I can't remember. Kaji didn't play. Did he play at all on Saturday? I can't remember if he played at all on Saturday.
He came on.
Yeah, so I think he's probably actually played more games than we probably think. It just so happens that we've stumbled across the lineup. I don't think it's the case he's been recalled, but I think if we had an under-23s team, I wouldn't be surprised if, like when, like the lads go out on loan to Chippenham or whatever, if Chippenham don't play him that week, I wouldn't be surprised if we did the same thing. Oh, to have an under-23s team.
But they still do though, because obviously they played a few players that were on loan
in the
to,
JPT,
like,
didn't they? Yeah.
Well, no, not that, but game at Melksham the other week, like there was a few players, but I think it's different though. I think it's different when they're going to non-league because they're still training with Swindon Town, then because they're obviously only part-time clubs, whereas Swindon Town's a full-time club. So obviously they're loaning Kaji out. You'd expect him to still be training with Swindon Town. Opposing
he probably is. He probably is still
team.
training, but I wouldn't be surprised if that City team had a few others that are out on loan elsewhere as well. I think.
But if Kaji was, say for example, Kaji was replacing somebody that was out injured, I wouldn't want to be risking a player that is basically,
Yeah, but when you think about kind of, we spoke about earlier, kind of the academy build-up and stuff, these players are kind of given a match routine, a training routine where they've got to be playing, they base everything on playing 90-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute matches. If he hasn't done that one week, then he's got to do it somewhere, isn't he, to continue his development. The amount of science that goes into these now, that's why we see the warm down of the players after the game, etc. Like players doing sprints, subs that didn't get used, doing sprints and stuff. That's just to get their stats up. So the more I think about it, the more I wasn't necessarily that surprised that he was in it. And I think that's probably the reason why.
Oh, that comment that Cozzy's just put.
That one there?
That is brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. Well done, Cozzy.
Oh, sensational.
The last topic stems from this might surprise you guys, but Ben was involved in a Twitter conversation earlier. I know. Shocking.
Was I?
You were. And you were kind enough to share it with us because it was interesting and it was as attention turned to the budget for next season.
It's going to be hours now.
No, I'm going to limit it to like 20 minutes max. It's the last thing we've got to talk about for tonight. There's no quiz, so we've got a little bit of time. So Ben, if you just want to fill anyone in who's not seen it yet, and then the rest of us all, I mean, Rich does want to get involved, look, but the rest of us can jump in as we...
I'm just going to get myself a cup of tea.
Yeah, did you make yourself comfortable? I was just having a little bit of think, really, and I was thinking about the budget for next season, because obviously the season's good as done now, so your mind does turn to next season. We've got 6 months now to prepare. We're going to have our first real proper pre-season we've had since Richie Wellens. And he's thinking, well, what's the budget going to be like next year? And I was thinking, well, we're going to own the county ground. So surely that means if it's being paid by the ED Trust, we've got no rent to pay. And surely that affects the budget, and that's a positive.
We pay half, though, don't we? We pay half, though, don't we?
Yeah, we pay 50%.
We pay 50. Well, yeah, we own half, but the ED Trust is paying for the 2.5 billion quid for the actual
billion quid.
2.5 million quid.
Oh, million. Sorry,
the actual freehold. But
you did say billion.
Million. But Nigel Eady was. The Swindon streets are paved with gold. Yeah, no, 2.5 million quid for the freehold. I think we are paying half of what the rent we were going to pay.
Yeah.
So still go towards something or other that's going to be paying towards the development of the club. But the other half of the rent is freed up. And also the external debt that's limited our budget this season and last season is no longer going to be there. Obviously, there's the money that's owed to Clem, but he's not asking for that at the minute. He's not put any date on it, and there's no interest on it. So that's shelved. So surely that affects the next season's budget. So we're not going to have big gates next season. We're not going to have, as you know, we're not going to see 10,000 gates. We're probably going to see about 7,500, 8 for big games at a push, but sort of 7,000 to 7,500. I think that's my guess, because fans are going to be a bit pissed unless we go sign some brilliant players next season in the summer. So I was just thinking, where do you think that puts us? You know, are we going to have more money available? Is it going to be the same? Are we going to be a bit more restricted this summer? What's going to happen? We know we've got players that are under contract, which we've never had for a long time. So we've got a lot of players who are signed up for next year already. It's probably about 10 to 15 players. So some of them will get sold, some of them will get moved on, some will be kept on, some we want to get rid of, but we probably won't be able to shift. So it'd be interesting to see where we are and what sort of budget we've got for next season. I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy to go first on that one, then I'll offer it round. When it got brought up in the chat, I said I don't think the budget will be any bigger than it is this season. I actually think it might be lower. And I base that on, I don't believe our season ticket sales will be particularly high. I think a lot of people are very downbeat about what's happened this year. And I think there was a comment that flashed up a minute ago. There's going to have to be a lot of ambition shown in the transfer market to win those fans' trust back. I agree though. I don't know if it was the same comment. I'm just scrolling here now to find it. I think the word I used was men in fancy suits will tell people what they want to hear, and that running a football club is very much like another arm of politics. And that's not suggesting anything untoward is going on, but at the end of the day, they're running a business. They want to earn the money. And the management, the senior management team at Swindon, whoever you want to put under that umbrella, will tell the fans who are passionate about the club what they want to hear, in the hope that they will invest their money in that club. And I don't think it's washing at the minute with at least a percentage of fans. So I think reduced season tickets. I think without having a lot of players that we can sell on from the current crop. I believe we are more than likely over our budget for this season, which will need addressing next year and balancing. I actually think our budget will, at best, be the same as this year, but I actually expect it to be lower. Let's ask Nick next. What's his thoughts on this?
I think the comment that Nigel put up about renewing season tickets. And I've had a season ticket for the last few seasons, and I'm seriously considering doing exactly what Nigel said there. Is waiting to see what players we bring in. Between now and next season, there's a hell of a lot of work to do to get fans back on track. We've had the honeymoon period. They can't come out now and say about, you know, all the things around the ground, in the purchase of the ground and all the costs for that. That's done. As Ben said, that's all sorted. There's extra money now available from the 50% of the rent that we're not paying. Obviously, player recruitment is going to be crucial. If we're still in League Two, which is likely, I can't see Charlie Austin still being here. And if sort of reported wage levels that you hear are freed up, then we should have the ability to bring in players that can get us out of this league. And I think it would depend so much on what players we bring in and what changes are made within the club on how it's run. And as I said right at the very start, we haven't got football people in charge of the club. That's the biggest problem. That needs resolving. I'm sure, you know, Clem has got the club 100% at his heart, and he wants us to do well, and he's got big ambitions for the club. And obviously further down the road, he will benefit from that, which is fine because he's putting money in putting the effort in. But unless we get sorted out on the pitch, that's all that matters. And, you know, as I said, I'll have the county ground as it is for the next 10 seasons if we've got a successful football team on the pitch. And that's what we've got to have. So unless we get the recruitment right, gates will definitely fall. We'll be back down to 7,000-8,000, and that's a lot of money that the club won't have. And that's, to me, that's one of the reasons why they've done the season tickets aren't a bad price, and certainly for mine, because I get concession season ticket, it is a very good price. But that's why they're pitching 27 quid or 25 quid for the side stands, whatever it is, on the walk-ins, because I think we're going to have less season ticket holders, so they're trying to recoup the money through the walk-ins. But the only way they'll do that is have a winning team on Saturday, Tuesdays. That's the key part.
Woody?
I think you flashed up Cozzy's comment as well. I'm just trying to find it.
This one here.
I agree with that. To be fair, in terms of if the club are saying they're going to build, the infrastructure, then our budget might have to be hit. But I'm not being funny. I don't see it happening that quickly, to be totally honest. So we need to sort out the playing pitch, because otherwise, unfortunately, we're at that stage now where players won't sign to us because we've got a nice brand new stadium, because we've got a nice, we've got a hotel attached to our stadium. Although it'll bring in some extra income, which will eventually boost that budget. When the plans originally came out, if I remember rightly, they were talking about pretty much doing work straight away, starting on it in some way or other. Already, they've already come out and said the plans won't even be made available for another year. So it's kind of, and this all still has to be voted on. It still has to be. Jay made a point about going to the AGM to ask this very question, pretty much, even before the season ticket prices came out, has been asked several times. Angus and Dee McKaylee have both had the chance to tell us what's going to happen if we don't go up this season, and they haven't been able to answer it. I think they'll do, and I hate speaking negatively about it, I really do, but I think they'll do the old spew of, we didn't sell 6,000 season tickets, so we don't have a competitive playing budget because we rely on our season. They'll do the same emotional blackmail that will try and make people buy tickets. But what they don't realise, we need maybe one or two, but at least another Charlie Austin-esque signing to be made early in the summer. So that will show the intent. They've made signs of intent in January with Austin, with Jody Morris. They need another type of those. They need another type of those kind of signings to get the season tickets through the door. Because yes, fully agree with like what Cozzy said on the back of that. Yeah, I'd love to see redevelopment. With all due respect, the majority of the fan bases, most of the older guys, obviously except for Nick, by the sound of it, most of them will come back anyway. We need to appeal to the new younger lads coming through, women and lasses and all of that kind of younger people coming through. They don't give a shit if the stadium's being developed. They want to come and see a good team playing football. And so there needs to be a fine balance. And of course, from my point of view, from somebody in the older generation, I would love to see a redevelopment of the stadium and see it happening. But it needs to have they need to do one quickly or another. It can't be we're just going to wait another year to approve the plans. But in the meantime, we're not selling enough season tickets, so we can't put it on the pitch, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody somewhere, either they need to seek further investment, or somebody somewhere needs to take a punt and get a couple of I said one or two or three signings that are going to make people go, Swindon mean business this year. And I don't mean late signings. I mean, like Stevenage did. I said all along, I know we joke about it because I said the same about Stockport. I didn't expect Stockport to do so well. But what I said about Stevenage, they will do well because they've made good signings early on in the transfer window. And look at them, they've done well. If Swindon can do that for a change, make a signing early in the transfer window, that will bring in the budget. And then it will create more anyway, so just to have that outlay of, I don't know, ballpark, say 200,000, to have that initial input is going to sell you season tickets, which is then going to mean even more money coming into the club, which could either go on the playing budget, on the redevelopment as well. So, I mean, it is a fine balance. It's a hard argument to have. And you know, as Cozzy's rightly said, we do.
No, I was just talking to Nigel. You carry on.
No, as Cozzy's rightly said, some of us, including myself, would love to see. I'd never want to see it relocated, but I'd love to see us just redevelop a little bit and make it a bit more appealing. But we need that football on the pitch as well. I'm sorry, but we've been told so many times now we're going for promotion, and you know, even if you reflect back on the Wellens one, I hate to say it, guys, because I was all for it, but we didn't actually go up fully on merit, did we? We went up because we had the best points per game. So, you know, you could argue that we've not really seen us get promoted properly for a long time. So, yeah. But, yeah, improve it on the pitch, you'll get the crowds. That's what I'll say. You get the crowds, it will fill up that nice new stadium a little bit better, that nice... Don't get me wrong, I want that to happen. But the fact that they're already coming out and saying this could be delayed, this isn't going to... The new plans won't be ready for another 6 months or whatever. Yeah, as Joe said, people can go and ask on Wednesday, but I think we'll get the same answers. It would depend on the season ticket sales.
Okay, Ben, you raised the question, so I'm going to skip you for a moment and let the other guys have their say, and then you can kind of reflect on it all if you like. So Ned, let me ask you next. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, what Woody said is pretty much everything that I was going to say, but. What I would like to see is all business done quickly, because, you know, for the last probably 3, possibly 4 seasons, you know, we've had new managers at the very beginning of the season, and we haven't had a decent pre-season. It seems to be this excuse every single season. So, you know, whether the budget's been reduced or increased, whatever, just get it all done quickly so we can all go away as a group, you know, gel, learn what Jody wants to implement for next season, and go from there. So I'm happy with, you know, whatever the budget is, to be perfectly honest, because he's going to make it competitive, but whether it's, you know, competitive or whether it's legit competitive is 2 different things. But I just want the business to be done at the beginning of the window rather than halfway through or at the end, because that pre-season is so important. And we need
to be in a position where whoever, assuming it's Jody, knows his first 11 that first game of the season. And too many times now we've been trying to rescue the season at the end of August. You know, it's kind of, and don't get me wrong, you use August. One of the reasons it's got that month-long window into the season is so you can, you know, make little tweaks here and there. You can identify that when you're playing in a competitive match. But, you know, we don't, as Ned's rightly said, you don't want to be bloody battling it. You don't want to be still making signings the day before we travel up to Harrogate. You know, it's kind of, it's just not. Yeah, we need to get out of that habit for a start.
Okay, Jack, let me ask you, linking into again a point Woody made, because I like when you're on in conversation like this to get the context behind the comments that some of the others are making. Woody sort of said when it comes to the younger fans, they're less, not that you're not bothered, but you're less bothered about the grounds being redeveloped. It's likely to have this in a year or two's time. We're going to be working on this. For you at this stage of being a supporter, is the most important thing the quality of player on the pitch?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't seen us as a team actually go up the leagues like properly. I've just seen the downfall of Swindon.
Mate, if it's any consolation, I haven't seen us above League One.
But yeah, Ben says and stuff. He says talks about the championship and the season and the Prem. The best I've seen is us probably content when we got to the playoffs in League One against Sheffield United, but then I wasn't really a fan too much then. So,
We couldn't hear what Sarah said then.
She's just moaning.
Just where am I going next? Rich, while you were making tea, we were talking about where we think our budget might be next season and why we think that. Some suggesting why it might be bigger than this year. Some suggesting why it might be lower. What's your thoughts?
I don't think there's gonna. I mean, Clem will probably come out and say, "Oh yeah, we've got a 20% bigger budget than we did this season. Like he did last season, we've got a 40% bigger budget, and we hardly really saw it or anything like that." I get like the transparency and stuff like that, but without us really knowing what the budget is, and I can totally understand why they don't disclose the budget, because they don't want other teams to know what budget they've got, and that's fair enough. But at least back it up, you know. And like I was listening to what Woody was saying, obviously getting Morris and getting Charlie Austin in during January, you know, and I think, yeah, I completely agree. I think like get a statement sign in, first one, you know, and yeah, it will start making us believe again. Do you know what I mean? I think, and that will basically set the standard of where we really think of where the budget's going to be. Because if you come in, literally first sign-in is going to be like an academy player again, then everybody's going to think, oh yeah, same budget as last year. There's going to be no changes. No, it's going to be the same old shit like it was last year, like sort of thing like that. So
out of interest, on that point specifically,
yeah,
if our first signing, and I don't have a player in mind, say our first signing is a current championship player, around the age of 29, played in the championship for 3 seasons, whatever.
McDonald.
If he's our first signing,
yeah,
and the next 5 are academy graduates, does that diminish him being the first signing, or because he was the first signing, there's the statement?
You got to start off good, you know. I mean, like, there's no point of just building it up because, you know, you're obviously trying to fill in players for next season, and I completely understand that, and that's fair enough. But, you know, get the players that you know are going to be in your starting 11 come first game of the season first, and then, you know, it's a difficult one. It's a tough question because, you know, you want fans to believe, you know, and if you can get that statement signing over the line first, then, you know, I do think fans may start to believe again. But that's very tough. And but the thing is, though, it's probably likely as well. We'll sign some big sign, and then the rest will be 18-year-olds. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a tough one.
Okay, Ben, final handover to you then. You've heard what everyone's had to say on this point. Anything in particular you agree with, disagree with?
I think the way forward for the club, I think I totally agree with Woody. I think there's a large chunk of the signings need to be done by the start of pre-season training. When they all come back, I think he wants 70% of his squad in, maybe even 75% of the squad in, so we can work with them. We've not had a proper pre-season for years, so an actual real proper pre-season with his squad. I think the fans need reassurance, and that can only happen with signings. We've been let down this season because we've been promised a promotion season. We've not had one. We've been promised a season of fantastic, exciting football. We've not had that. We've got one of the worst home records in the league. We feel like we've been sort of let down, and we played premium price to be let down because we've paid a lot of money. Some people buying a season ticket at 400 quid to watch us be mid-table in League Two. So they've got to regain trust, and they've got to say, right, well, here's a statement signing. This is what we need to do. So they need that. They need more than one. They can't just make one statement sign and then sign 3 or 4 kids. I think we need an abandonment of the current, let's sign it. We've got enough kids in the squad under contract already. We need about 6 or 7 proper pros in. I mean, experienced pros in to go on top of the kids that we've already got signed up. And that will make one hell of a difference. It might cost a few quid, whether the budget's there or not for that, I don't know. But that's what they need to do to ensure a good season next season. But if they do that, fans will come back, because Swindon fans do put their money where their mouth in, and they do turn up in numbers. And if they can see the club are actually make a genuine attempt, then they will come. Their numbers will come. But Clem needs to do his bit.
Okay. And that's perfect timing for that discussion, as 11 hours ago, Swindon Town themselves tweeted, season tickets are now on sale and you can buy early to save money. Needless to say, the reactions to that particular post haven't exactly been positive 100% of the way. Gents, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you to everyone as well in the chat. There have been lots of fascinating, interesting, and quite conversation directing comments brought in. We appreciate each and every one of them. Ned, great to see you back, pal. Ben, Rich, Nick, Woody, as ever, great to have you on. And Jack, thank you very much for your time as well. The conversation will continue on our socials. We'll be back on Friday. But until then, from everyone at Fools Rush In, good night.
Take my